All right, in this lesson, I'll introduce two options that we have to add new columns to an existing data frame. I'm going to begin by re-executing our NBA code and previewing the first three rows with our head method. So there we have our data frame. Now, in the previous lesson, we introduced a way that we can extract a single column from our data frame, and that was the bracket syntax. So for example, if I wanted to extract the salary column as a series, I can do that. And I also mentioned that if the column that we specified in double quotes did not exist, pandas would throw an error. So for example, if I entered sport here, which does not exist as a column name, I would get an error. And there we have our key error. But here's what's interesting. If I use this syntax and I use the equal sign to assign something to this column that does not exist yet, what pandas will do is generate it automatically. So by itself, NBA with sport in square brackets is going to give us an error. But as soon as I add that equal sign and assign values on the right side, it's going to generate a sport column even if it does not exist. Now you have to be careful here because if the value that you pass in the double quotes in the square brackets does exist, the values in that series are going to be overwritten with whatever you place on the right side. So just be careful whenever you use this syntax. But what I'm going to do here is create a single value column called sport. And on the right side, I'm just going to put a single string. It's going to be basketball. This is called a scalar value, and what it means is that every value within my new sport column that's about to be generated is going to be equal to basketball. Now, on the right side of the equal sign, I can give something like a new panda series, and that way it's going to align itself with my existing data frame. But in this simple example, I'm just going to make it a universal value. It's always going to be basketball in my new sport column. So I'm going to execute this line. And it's not going to show me anything because an assignment operation does not output anything. But if I now preview my first three rows, I can see to the far right that we've had a sport column added and the values within it are all basketball. And this is going to be the same as we go down all the way for all of the 450 rows in our data frame. Let's try this with one more example. Let's say I want to add a league column. I'm going to write the name of my data frame, square brackets, and league. At this point, this column does not exist, so if I just executed this code, it would lead to an error. But as soon as I put an equal sign, I could assign values on the right side, and it's going to automatically create that new column for us. So I'm going to create a league column, and once again, I'm going to set it to a constant value, which is just going to be National Basketball Association. And I'm going to preview the first three rows again. I'm just going to write it within the same cell. So now we can see that we have a brand new league column. It's always added to the very end, and we have the consistent value of National Basketball Association in that league column. Now at this point, what I'm actually going to do is take our code from the top right here and re-import our data frame so that we go back to our original look. And the reason I'm going to do this is just to demonstrate how to perform what we just did with another syntactical option. So we're back to our original data frame. Let's once again add custom sport and league columns, but now I'm going to use a method that's available on my data frame. And that method is called insert. So if I do nba.insert, all methods require parentheses. Let's take a look at the available parameters on the insert method. We have loc, column, and value, and those are the three important ones here. So loc represents the index location within the columns. So if I look at my 9 columns in my data frame, each one of them is given its own index position, so to speak, within the columns. So among the columns, the name column is the column in the 0 position. The team column is the column in the first index position. The number column has an index position of 2. So just like the labels and the index to the left, these rows right here have index positions and index labels. Columns in data frames also have, behind the scenes, their own sequence of index positions. And they count exactly as a typical row labels do. So they start at 0 and proceed to 1 less than the total number. So here we have 9 columns, so the last index position, that's going to be salary, is going to be 8. And this log argument asks us for the numeric index position where we'd like to insert that column. So for example, if I want to insert it where position is right now, that's 0, 1, 2, 3. So position is currently in position 3. And if I were to put a 3 here in my insert method, it's going to plop that new column right in the middle there and push everything else to the right. So position, age, height, and so on are going to be moved to the right, and where position is now in the third position is where my new column is going to be inserted in the index position of 3 among the columns. The second argument we have here is column, and that represents the name that we're going to give to our brand new column. I'm going to again call it sport. And the next parameter is value, which represents the value or values that we want to provide for that new column. And I'm once again going to do basketball. Now insert permanently modifies the original data frame, so we don't need to put any kind of in-place parameter or even assign it back to NBA. So as soon as I execute this and preview my first 3 rows, you can see that the sport column has been added into index position 3, and it consists of a consistent value of basketball for the entire data frame. Let's try this example one more time. I'm going to use my data frame, which is NBA. I'm going to call the insert method, place my parentheses. Let's say I want to insert it in position 7. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So where we have weight now is where we're going to add our brand new column, and everything else is going to be pushed to the right, including the weight column. So I'm going to put 7. My next parameter is the column name. I'm going to call it league. That's going to be the big bold thing that appears at the top of my column. And finally, my last parameter here is value, which represents the value or values that I want to populate in this brand new column. And I just want to do National Basketball Association. So I'm going to execute this, and when I take a look at the first 3 rows, keep in mind this is where weight is now in index position 7, and when I take a look at the new result, you'll see that weight has been pushed to the right, and instead now in position 7 we have our brand new league column, which predictably has the consistent value of National Basketball Association. So these are just 2 ways that we can add brand new columns. We can add them directly with the square brackets. That's always going to add them to the end of the series. And we also have the insert method, which we can use to inject or insert a brand new column in the middle of a data frame. Now in this example, we kept it simple by making it a consistent duplicate value, but in upcoming lessons we'll show you how to create new series or new columns that are going to have custom values depending on, let's say, the values in other columns in that data frame. So I'll see you in the upcoming lessons.